Happy Monday, my friends. Welcome to Citizen McCain. I'm so happy to be here with you. And Miranda, as usual, we want to remind you, don't forget to raise your digital hand if you want to ask us a question. And a reminder that if you're listening to the podcast and you want to join us on Zoom, you can register to do that at tway.tv/Megan. And lastly, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe at youtube.com/Citizen McCain. And don't forget to give us a follow at Instagram and TikTok at Citizen McCain. We just want a reminder that you can listen to this podcast on audio as well.
Yes.
And to please subscribe. We have about 12 subscribers, so we're
Oh,
appreciative
hush.
for
Stop it. Way more than
for
that.
my
But
my extended family for subscribing, my
my
dentist,
Aunt Val, yes, everyone.
Miranda's family. Oh, we kid. This is just, we're
I put in
building.
a lot of time editing that podcast, so people please
Yes,
subscribe and listen. Just
please to
just
continue.
just hit subscribe. You don't have to listen, just download. We just need the numbers.
Yeah, thank you. If you people keep saying they love the show so much, I'm like, show us love back. And
Yes.
we have
Prove
on
it.
the show later our friend V Sphere, who you guys know as Under the Desk News, our old friend. We're gonna talk to her all about all things going on in political land and the future of Democrats. But first and foremost, we have two big things that happened this weekend. Miranda and I both watched the HBO documentary about the Titanic sub disaster. It's called
Whew.
Implosion, the Titanic sub disaster about Ocean Gate's uh, Titan submersible that imploded in 2023 on a deep sea dive to the Titanic. I just want to play this clip really quick. Number one, this is of the main guy's wife, the head guy, and I can't remember his name right now. I apologize.
Stockton
When
Rush?
Stockton Rush. Yes. I was like, he has a really dumb, I almost said Shooter McGavin because it's like a dumb, waspy name.
Don't
But
insult Happy Gilmore that way. Yeah.
I want to show this clip of her that's making its way all over social media.
About
Transceiver head moves around.
400 meters to go.
Yeah, it should be about 500 meters, 30. What was that thing?
Okay, so for people listening, she hears an explosion or like a
Drop
noise.
2
It
weights.
sounds like a door slamming. It's very,
Yeah.
very hard to hear.
Tighten,
And she
drop
seems
2
unaware
weights.
that her husband just exploded. Just a reminder to everyone, also Netflix
Copy.
has a
Tighten, drop 2
documentary
weights.
called Titan, the Ocean Gate Disaster that will be available on June 11th. I will obviously watch
We
that
will
as
be
well.
watching that too. Yeah.
Miranda, your first takeaway.
Oh my God. Terrible tragedy, completely unavoidable. If I had one
You
big
mean
like
avoidable?
well, because it's like, okay, there were so many situations where there were people literally telling this guy, do not put this thing in the water. It will not make
Yeah.
it. And then they fired them. And like if there was like a word cloud, word clouds for things, the word would be hubris. That would be the biggest word because I think I heard that probably like 25 different times when they were talking. They're like the hubris of this guy, the hubris of this mission. That poor woman, and now her name is escaping me, but she was an employee who was trying to be a whistleblower and say, listen, if you take this down, it is not going to work. Uh,
Yeah,
they
her
fired her.
testimonial.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
just and she said that when she left the ship that was like kind of holding the submersible and all that stuff, they wouldn't even look at her when she was like leaving and she devoted so much of her life. She left her home and her family and her friends to go live on an ocean liner to work on this project and devoted her entire life to it because she was excited and they're like, "You don't have the explorer mindset." It's like, "Ew. That is disgusting." And that poor woman watching that footage and she's like, what was that bang? And
It's her
guy who
husband exploding.
the guy
That's
who
what
was
that thing
explaining
is.
it to the Coast Guard because after we okay, so I had to rewind it because when we're watching it, you see the bang and then they get a message back from the sub saying, "Oh, we just went down, whatever 2 more meters or whatever the metric
But
was."
like sound travels slower,
Sound
right?
travels
Yeah.
slower under the ocean, so she hadn't realized that no, they were dead. She was concerned when she heard the bang, but then she got the note, the text or whatever from them, and she's like, "Oh, they're fine." Um, no, they were not fine. The message was sent prior to the thing. And there were so many, at least, I think it was at least 2 or 3 different test missions. They were like, if we had gone down just 1 or 2 more little bits, we would have imploded too. And there's
Yeah.
these men who were being interviewed that were part of the expedition crew and part of the research teams and all that stuff. And it's incredibly compelling. I recommend anybody watch it. It's an hour and a half and it flies by.
So I'm not a submariner and neither is Miranda, but one of the things that you really take away is throughout the documentary, Stockton Rush, the owner and guy who blew up, he keeps saying that like every submarine in the world, including like James Cameron's one that helped film things for the movie Titanic, and he's considered truly one of like the great innovators when it comes to like deep sea diving. That they all use titanium and he decided to use carbon something. And I
Carbon
apologize, but it's
fiber,
like,
yeah.
yeah, carbon fiber, which is a totally different material that I guess can get like it can obviously can crack, and it was cracking at the time. He kept hearing cracks and saying like I'm just going to keep diving, and that he literally thought that like the laws of physics didn't apply to him. Another interesting part of the documentary was that he comes from a really rich family and so does his wife. His dad started Bohemian Grove, which for people that don't know that is, it's like this really weird meeting that has a lot of conspiracy theories about it, where like
Secret society.
yeah, like the richest people globally meet and famous people, and like they probably do human sacrifices. Like it's a very
Allegedly,
controversial,
allegedly.
allegedly, yes. And his wife was like a blue blood person too, and it's like
His wife's great great grandparents had like invented Macy's, the department store, and they died on the original Titanic, something crazy like that.
yes.
So they had like this weird obsession with it anyway. But yeah, they were all old money, blue blood people.
And it's just like super your takeaway from it, at least mine was like hyper rich people with no scientific background. Like there should have been like more regulation and there should have been eyes on it, because they clearly were just honestly like spoiled brats that thought that like science and the laws of physics didn't apply to them. And it's very tragic for the victims that passed with them. But that guy seemed like he was on a suicide mission,
Mhm.
and it's just I will never not be fascinated by this story. I will always be fascinated by this Titan sub disaster. And I made my mom watch it, and she said they're psychopaths. Like these people are
Yeah.
psychopaths.
He killed
Um,
he it was like a literal murder suicide mission. And there was this one man who was a good friend of Stockton Rush who said, the truest victim in this is that kid, the teenager.
yeah.
He's like, and I helped put him in the submersible. He's like, I helped hold his life jacket as he went in. And it's like, God, imagine the survivor's guilt you must feel. But he said that Stockton had gotten himself in too deep. He's like, I knew, and he knew that this wasn't going to work the way he thought it was. But it's like, you can't give these people their money back. They paid incredible sums of money that they reinvested into the company. He just didn't have it. And I think, I mean, I don't know billionaires, so maybe I don't know. But if it's like, yeah, this isn't going to work. And if we go down, you're going to die. But when it does work, you get to go on the inaugural mission, just, cool your jets. Maybe they would have been cool with it. I don't know. But the whole thing is incredibly tragic and terrible.
A lot of people really culpable, a lot of very grave irresponsibility. And I implore you all to watch it because it's very good. And we will look forward to watching the Netflix
Yes.
documentary. But we also have some other news. We can always talk about the cost of living and how expensive things are. Well, Miranda has a boots on the ground photo to share with everyone. Would you like me to introduce this, or would you like
Yeah,
to?
you can introduce it because I was just in my jaw was on the floor. I had to text you. This was Saturday morning for me. And I was just, doing my grocery
We
shopping
have
on my
this
on my
photo.
phone.
And for
And
people listening, we just want to clarify that Miranda does not shop at, I mean, maybe you shop at Whole Foods, but you were not shopping
I
at Whole Foods.
don't.
She was not
I
at an
don't.
organic market. Okay, so this is a $4.48
One
cost
onion.
onion, one onion, one
This is
onion
the
in a
screenshot from
basket.
my phone Saturday morning.
Uh,
One onion.
one onion costs almost $5, probably $5 after tax. Um, jobless rate is at 4.2%, but real numbers are more like 24%. We all always also keep talking about, how Americans are in survival mode and the American dream is dead. I think an almost $5 onion is an example of that. I can't fucking believe your onion costs
It
$5.
wasn't even a
I can't
special
believe
onion.
that.
I thought
Yes,
maybe he'd show up with like a pound of onions and I'd be like,
yes.
okay, maybe I'm just the idiot. No, it was a single onion. And you know what? Thank goodness for this Postmates, Instacart, whatever shopper guy, because he probably saw that and was like, this lady is an idiot and swapped it out for a cheaper one. But it's not the onion that I wanted. I wanted that one because I needed it. But, why is an onion almost $5?
crazy. And no wonder
Christy
like
Nome
people,
must be stopped. That's all I'm going to say about that.
what does Christy Nome have to do with this
She's
onion?
deporting all of the people who work in the
Is that
fields
what
to
this
pick
is
the
about?
onions. That's what I think it's about. I don't know, but the onion should not be $5. That's batshit crazy. The
Obviously, no one, and you wonder why we have like one of the problems I have with the Maha movement is it's everyone's like, just eat organic and switch out, whatever. McDonald's, a whole McDonald's meal costs $5, which is why
I
poor
texted you. I
people,
was like, wouldn't it be cheaper
yes,
for me to just take them to McDonald's than try
to
to make
take your
them
kids to
lunch?
McDonald's, to take them to fast food instead of spending $5 on one onion. People who want to say inflation isn't real and that like America isn't in a real crisis, apparently don't care about $5 onions, which we do. But my lovely producer Ashley just informed me that V is here.
Oh,
I'm
yay.
very excited. V, welcome to sit back to Citizen McCain for the.
Oh my God, we're all shirt
Hi.
triplets. I love it.
We are.
We're all
It's a blue shirt
matching.
day.
I
Yes.
know.
That happens a lot when I come on your show. We tend to be wearing the same
We all end up
color.
in the same
I
outfit.
love
Yeah.
it.
Welcome, V.
Really
Thanks.
quick, V is obviously the Rochester-based LGBTQIA podcaster, online personality, and citizen journalist who has Under the Desk News on TikTok to make news media less intimidating and easier to understand. You have over 3 million followers. You can follow her on TikTok and Instagram at Under the Desk News and on YouTube at The Sphere, SPEHAR. You don't need my plugging. You got a huge following, V.
Yeah, we need your plugging.
Right.
I know, I
I've
need your
asked Megan to come on my show like a million times. We can't make the schedule work, but we will.
My schedule can't work, and I'm also scared of your co-host. Like, candidly.
Sammy?
Yes, I do not want to. I have this thing in my life ever since Seth Meyers screamed at me so badly that I had a miscarriage. True
Oh my
story.
God.
That's true.
On TV, I do not get screamed at. Ashley's like, oh my god, she's
Sure.
like going like this. If you can't
It's-
laugh at things like that, I'm
It's
sorry.
true though. That
I
really
did.
did happen. Yeah.
It's a true story. He
It's
never
on- and it's on
apologized.
TV.
It's on TV, a real story. I wrote about it in my book. I just
I
like
would
I
never
cannot
let that
get-
happen on my show. Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
I will come on. Just tell your co-host that I come in
we
good
do
faith.
separate. I will. We do separate interviews, so I could have a V and Megan corner for
I'm happy
for
to
that
talk
one.
about anything you want. I promise. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be like
Well,
a
You have to
that's
get
what
coward.
under
I
the desk though, Megan. You
Uh-huh.
got to get under
You
the
do.
desk.
See, the thing that I want to have you on to talk about though is sometimes like it's why I text you sometimes, right? I'm like, am I crazy or is this
No.
happening? It's to make sure that we're not in the same echo chamber or like when something really nutso is happening, I'm like, Megan, on your corner of the world, are people feeling this is weird too? And I think it's good to have that kind of like ability to touch base with people who are sort of
I will
reaching
come
into
on.
different communities that you don't. Yeah.
I will come on. Just message me.
cool.
I promise. Just tell your co-host to go easy. I really don't like. I can talk about anything as long as we're calm. But sometimes people
got
they're
it.
like, only a Republican in front of them, and they're like, "Oh, the sins of blah blah are your
This
fault."
is
I'm like,
your
"No."
fault. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
First and foremost, we did want to say to you and to all our wonderful listeners, Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride.
And it's the second day of Pride Month. First of all, before we get into the hard
Not even a
question I
Pride
have to
unicorn
ask you
yet.
about Pride Month, well, it's
Yeah.
just sad. What does Pride Month mean to you, and how are you celebrating? Are you and your wife doing anything special? Do you care about Pride
Yeah.
Month? Like, does it? I mean,
Yeah.
how do you feel?
So yes, and right. I think it's great to have this month that we can celebrate and talk about the things that are going on in the queer community and sort of have these in real life opportunities to meet up that don't always exist throughout the rest of the year. So I've never been like a big parade person or like a super I wait to be gay until June person. I'm pretty consistently gay the whole year and I celebrate it every day. But what I like about Pride is it tends to be sort of jam packed with events. So like here in Rochester, right, we have like a coloring event where you could like go and do adult coloring and crafts at one of the coffee shops. There are meetups for books. There are meetups to buy merch from local queer artists who have produced like Pride merch because, we're not doing the Target, Walmart Pride merch thing. And so I think what I like about Pride the most is this opportunity to meet up in person with people in your community that you might not know, or maybe visit a city that you've never been to before and feel like, oh, it's probably extra safe for me if I'm a queer person who gets nervous when I travel to new cities. There's going to be something for me to do. There's going to be more people that are like me in that place, and we can kind of have a fun, exciting time.
I like Pride because in places like Flagstaff, Arizona, they apparently have I have not been, but they have a lovely Pride event and parade there.
Yep.
And I like people who live in smaller areas of the country being able to come out and celebrate, where you don't normally get to do in like DC and New York and LA, whatever. So, but I do have
Well,
to
and in
ask you-
Buffalo, we do an event every year where we hand out books, and it's just books that
Nice.
have queer families in it. So, like this year, Chasten Buttigieg's book, New York Times bestseller about Papa's coming home. Right? It's just about two dads, and one of them's coming home from work, and they have to get a cake and do all the silly stuff, and we hand those books out at Pride.
Love
It's
that.
nice. I really like,
Yeah.
I love books like that. And
There's no
I don't
moral
know.
lesson. There's no like, it's just a book about a family, and it's really nice.
Yes, I like that too. I do have to ask you something that's pretty depressing,
Yeah.
and it's been depressing for our team to talk about. So we want to show you this poll. Among Republicans, support for same-sex marriage has dropped. This really surprised me.
Mhm.
14% in the past 3 years. We have the graph right here.
Mhm.
It's much higher, 88% with Democrats, but even among independents, it's at 76%, which is I'm candidly saying much lower than I would have anticipated for
Mhm.
independents. And even Democrats, we were saying like, I'd love to talk to the Democrat who's against gay marriage. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
not
why are
encouraged.
20% of them against it? This
Yeah.
seems wild. Yeah. I think it
Are
has
you?
to do with people
Yeah.
being more extreme across the board, right? More tribal across the board. So there is subscribing, and we see this on, I mean, the Democratic Party, what's our platform? I know we're going to talk about it. I don't know.
Mhm.
But, there's this sort of like all or nothing that there didn't used to be before. And a lot of folks have sort of grown up under this more extremist Republican Party where they're like, I'm pro-choice, I'm anti-gay, I'm for this, I'm for that. But you're just sort of like, checking one box and saying D, all of the above, as opposed to kind of really thinking about each issue. I also think it's weird that we continue to poll Americans about their feelings about gay marriage. That's like, why don't we poll them about their feelings about interracial or interfaith marriage? Because it would be weird, right? Or like, do you think that straight people should be allowed to get married when they have an over 50% divorce rate? We wouldn't do that. That's weird. So
Mhm.
sometimes I'm like, when they create these polls, I'm like, you're creating a problem where maybe we shouldn't be justifying, like, why we shouldn't be asking people what they think about gay marriage. I don't think it's the law of the land. It has been.
Yeah, and it's a little. I agree with you. Like, people wouldn't be like, "Are you for interracial marriage?" Because
Yeah.
I think the support for that is like, it's like at 2%. It's like something
Yeah.
ridiculous. But I don't know. It's
It's very
made me
upsetting.
sad
It
to
is.
see that, and I don't think like anything's ever going to happen to Oberfell, but
Oh,
I don't
I
like this
do.
kind of trend. You do?
Oh, I do. I actually
Okay.
did a full episode on it. I'm actually quite concerned about Obergefell. And I met Mr.
You are?
Obergefell, and he was concerned as well. Yeah, of course, you always are. You never know what a day is going to bring in this country with the way that laws and things are going on right now, and the level of extremism we're experiencing. And I think we never thought Roe could fall, and it
I
did.
was
So then
about
I'm
to
like, you
say,
know
look
what?
at Roe
Everything's
versus
possible.
Wade. Yeah.
Right. Anything's
Anything
possible.
can be flipped.
So we did an episode called The 9 Documents, which is the 9 documents that you need to do as a queer couple to solidify the rights inherent to marriage should it be overturned. So me and my wife just did this. And it's essentially like your living will, a trust, a pet directive, all the different things, your hospital, your medical, all this different stuff. So that if at the federal level, it was to be overturned and you were to lose those rights inherent to marriage, you would have the right paperwork to have essentially a partnership that replicates those rights. So you can go to, I think it's prideplans.org, and that will get you the 9 documents. But it's something that I did. I'm genuinely concerned about, so I physically did this paperwork.
Legislation was introduced back in February, right, to start overturning it or changing the name
Who
of it. It's like
introduced
the
it?
right to
Sorry
marriage.
to
Well,
be.
I know that Clarence Thomas is in favor of getting rid of it, and he's been kind of open about it. So, but I don't know who introduced it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
How
they
would our
want to change
Secretary
the
of
name of it.
Treasury feel? Him and his husband and kids. I mean, how
Here's
would he
the thing.
feel? Like,
Here's the thing, though. They think, okay, so it's not about solidarity with the queer community for some folks, right? It's about where do you have the most power? And right now he has the most power in the MAGA movement. He's going to do the 9 documents too, right? And he's going to say things like love is love, and I love my husband, and I love my children, and I've got all my legal paperwork, and I can fight this, and I can make it nice for myself. And that sort of like rugged individualism is what's going to make people who should be a person to stop something as ridiculous as this to go, well, there'll be a way around it. We can figure it out. And also, I said that website wrong. It's prideplans.com for the 9
thank you.
documents. So
Anything else you want to say before we move on from this? I have a lot to talk to you about. We only have 1 hour. I could talk to you for 9 hours,
I
but
know.
you are a busy lady.
I know.
Anything else you want to say about this? I would just like to say for the 10,000th time, I was a huge supporter of marriage equality, huge supporter of the LGBTQ community having exact same equal rights as straight people. Yeah. This would be a cataclysmic undoing of a lot of things about the American experiment. It would be then I would maybe get on this page of we're heading towards The Handmaid's Tale. I don't see
cruel and
this happening,
unusual. It's
but
weird. It's cruel, unusual, and weird, and that's all I want to say about it. And I think most people don't want to deal with it. And we're all Americans here. We should have equal rights, based on who we love. Should not make a difference. I think some of the rights inherent to marriage that are civil rights should maybe just be offered to everybody, anybody. But I think it's
also
unnecessary, Nikki.
you can't take rights away from people once they've been given. Like, how would you even litigate that?
I
And
Anyway,
also in the Republican Party, you're gonna lose a ton of your moderates, your women, the same people who aren't on board with Donald Trump. You're gonna continue. They're gonna bleed. So
Republicans love
it's
to
not gonna
believe that
work.
independents don't exist. That's their favorite thing. They don't exist.
Look,
They
like,
do.
most
Yeah.
gay people have Republican parents, okay, guys? I did. Like, it's like, you can't do this. You're going to cut into a bunch of your group of your community who have gay children and grandchildren. So it's like, it is what it is. Let's
Also, what
leave it
about the
alone.
gay people serving in our military to keep us? I mean, whatever. I could
Exactly,
talk about this
right.
forever.
Yeah.
I actually have been thinking about you with this book, Original Sin, that came out. And just so you're aware, V, we've been hammering the living hell out of Jake Tapper. I don't like Jake Tapper. I don't like this book. You and I have political differences, but both, I believe, have respect for Joe Biden and his family.
Sure.
I thought that he was a flawed president, but he is a good human. And I do not blame all the problems in America on him and his shoulders. I do not blame them on Hunter Biden. I think this book is exploitative, and I do not buy the narrative that Jake Tapper is some kind of like truth teller right now and is, saying something. I think he's trying to get in good with people on the right. I think this is all opportunistic and a way to make money. You actually interviewed President Biden, one of his last interviews in the Oval Office. Incredible. I just want to ask you about these reports that he was in cognitive decline. I want to say I have my mother's permission. She said every conversation she ever had with him did not have any experience like that whatsoever.
No.
I have friends who was around him quite a bit. Same thing. Didn't have this experience. I know we all saw what we saw at the debate, but I just don't believe he's like a literal dementia patient that can't put words together. We just saw him speak a few days ago. What's
He's
your take
cracking
on all this?
jokes. He was being hilarious.
So I've spent a lot of time with President Biden, and I did do one of his last interviews on December 13th, so right before he left office. One thing I'll tell you, when he came into office, he came in like a firecracker. The first 2 years, he had a level of energy, and we were getting things like Inflation Reduction passed, right? He was doing a lot. I think that the war in Gaza took a significant toll on him, and he started to realize this is going to be part of his legacy and his presidency. I think the pullout of Afghanistan took a significant toll on him. I don't think it made him a dementia patient or unable to lead, but you could see that sort of aging of him. Each president ages. There's things that happen in their administration that age them significantly. And I think those were two for him. And I think when I met with him, I never felt like he wasn't with it or able to complete sentences or have thoughts or crack jokes or remember things. I did feel like he was a little bit slower and more pensive and reflective. He talked more about his legacy in the last year, and certainly my last interview with him, than he did when he was first coming in. So I think he switched about halfway through his administration. I would say he switched from activate to reflect and legacy thinking, but I don't think he ever lost it or slowed down to a point where I was concerned about him or was wandering around or posting conspiracy theories like our current administration is doing. And I agree. I don't know what Jake Tapper's goal was with this. This is a person who has massive access, right, to the president and to everybody else that was going on. If he was so concerned, he should have brought this up sooner. I do agree that the only thing I'll say Biden was maybe a little delusional about was the idea of running for a second term. That should have never happened. He got in on the idea that he was going to be a one-term rock star president, right? He was going to use all of his legacy knowledge to get all of this stuff done. And in the first 2 years, we really did see that. This idea of taking a second term, or that he had earned a second term, I could see that being things that his friends and family said to him. We know that he had a lot of feelings about his time in the Obama White House and proving himself and feeling like, they always count Joe Biden out and they're not going to count me out. And if he had gotten Obama's endorsement back in 2016, he would have done 2 terms, but he didn't. And it was time for him to sort of pass that baton after the first term. He was supposed to be a transitional president. So those are the only criticisms I have for Biden. But as far as ever feeling like he was out of it or shuffly or like old or lost, like that just quite simply was not my experience.
I want to show this clip of number 4 of Biden talking about Jake Tapper, because I'll get to it 1 second. Let's just show the clip really quick. Number 4.
And there's also been a lot of discussion recently about your mental and physical capabilities while you were in office.
You can see that. I'm mentally incompetent, and I can't walk, and I could beat the hell out of both of them.
Well, do you want to reply to any of those reports, and also to the fact that there are some Democrats who are now questioning whether you should have run for re-election in the first place?
Why didn't they run against me then? I got beaten.
So I think it's perfectly valid for him to respond this way. I would be furious too if someone had written a book about my life. And, again, just from my opinion on this reporting, I think this is a way for Jake Tapper to try and get in with Republicans. He's even been saying a bunch of stuff that's very negative about Democrats and stuff about his child and whatever. Do you think there are more people in the country that feel the way you and I do? Or do you think President Biden's legacy is sort of like one of a dementia patient in office?
I think that I think his legacy is going to be very difficult to land on what it's going to be because of how the last 2 years of the presidency went and all of the different issues that took place during that time. We have war in Ukraine, we have the Gaza war, we have a lot of things that sort of are unfinished and are still going on at this point, and that really clouded what should have been an easy handoff if he was already getting ready to hand it off in some ways. I agree that I think Jake Tapper is probably trying to play the fair weather friend game in terms of like, okay, well, now Republicans are in, so I'm going to side with this. He's also on CNN, which has taken a little bit more of a right-wing turn. Same with Washington Post. So, I mean, I don't think President Biden's legacy deserves to be one of the level of humiliation that this man has endured for the last year.
Yeah.
I think the humiliation of Joe Biden should be done and like enough now, and let this man go live his life in peace.
He has cancer.
Even if he didn't, he did good things. He did good things and bad things, like all presidents do, right? There are wins and there are losses. That's the job. But I think for his legacy to be one of like that he was completely like out of it and all these things, like Reagan doesn't have that legacy, and he had brain surgery during his presidency. You know what I mean? Woodrow Wilson doesn't have that legacy, and he had a stroke in office. So I think that history will be more fair to Joe Biden than the present press and people are being, and I think he deserves that.
So one of the things we've been discussing, and I know you probably think about on like an hourly basis, is just the future of the Democrat Party. The New York Times reported last week that Democrats are spending $20 million to try and earn back men. I'm not trying to be ugly at all. I'm not really sure how money makes that happen. I think it's more a messenger. Excuse me. Can I just show you this clip of Jonathan Capehart on Morning Joe? I really like Jonathan Capehart. I actually think he's really smart. And he was talking about how the Obama people are sort of still in control of everything. Number 7, please.
One of the things folks have to remember is that the Obama team were the first Democrats to be in power who weren't Clintons. And so remember, folks used to complain after the Clinton years, oh my God, the Clinton folks are running all these things and can't we get new blood? The Obama people come in, they're the new blood, and now people are starting to complain, oh my God, the Obama people, they're running everything. Some of the criticism, I think, is valid. Sometimes you get a sense that they think they know everything, they run the world, and in some cases you can understand it because, well, they did win 2 presidential elections. But at a certain point, that class of folks has to start listening to the next generation coming up because they have ideas. They have ways of reaching out to the voters, to men, to the Obama coalition that they just don't have. They don't have the feel for it because they're not from that generation.
I agree with him. I think the Pod Save America Bros and the Obama coalition, they really need to start stepping aside. And I don't understand why they don't understand that they have not been impactful in a positive way this past election cycle. Do you agree with Jonathan? And who do you like going forward? Is there like leaders in this moment you like, or are you going to just like, take a pause?
So we talked about this on my show a little bit, and this episode made its way around crooked media every which way. I had everybody over there texting us to be like, oh my God, I can't believe you and Sammy said that. But the problem that people had with the Clinton folks being in power for so long wasn't necessarily that they weren't intelligent or that they couldn't win elections or that they weren't smart. It's that they sort of like made a bunch of money and then plateaued and then didn't pass the baton down and didn't help people and lost touch with the folks who were actually the voting public of the Democratic Party. And I think we saw that same thing with the Obama people, right? They came into power, they were young and scrappy, they did different things. Now they've made an awful lot of money and they're out of touch again with the average person who votes democratically. And instead of recognizing that they've sort of created this ivory tower for themselves, they let their ego get in the way and they say things like, no, we're only like in our 40s. What do you mean it's time for us to pass it on? Or like, well, we built this and we understand better. And if you knew what I knew, and as soon as you get to the if you knew what I knew game, then you no longer trust the public. And then, why should the public trust you? So I said, we had given all of this attention and all of this love and all of this subscription to, let's say, Pod Save America, because we wanted them to use that money and influence to build a sword. And instead they built a shield for themselves and then hid behind it. And so and that's just like me talking. I still think that there's a place for everybody in this party to continue to do great things, except maybe James Carville. Me and James Carville have beef. I think he should go enjoy New Orleans and let somebody else do something. But the Pod Save guys, they do have an institutional knowledge that could be incredibly helpful right now, but we have to get our egos out of the way, right? We have to say, okay, and that was what was right at that time, and now we're in a different time. I think as far as this $20 million campaign, Sam, they're calling it, speaking to American men, that is cringe and humiliating and upsetting. And why are we spending so much money trying to get men back when 90 million people did not vote, and the most reliable voting bloc for Democrats is the Black community, the queer community, and women. So why aren't we digging deeper into the people who live and breathe and historically show up for this party? Why are we trying to court moderates? Why are we trying Black women, right? Like, invest in that, right? Let's get more of those 90 million people to see what are our values? What are our policies? What are we offering you? How are we going to make your life better? As opposed to how are we going to convince men to vote for us? They're still skipping the part where I need you to be able to better communicate why. What do you get over here, right? What do you get over here? What does it feel like? How does that help you? How does that help your family? I don't know that they've invested in that so much as there's sort of this like issue with men wanting to be in company with men, and we still have a lot of men in power trying to win back. I don't know that we lost.
Are they just trying
Democrats,
to create like the anti-Nick Fuenteses and all that stuff? Like more,
I guess so, but I don't
vocal
think
young men.
How's that going to get more Black women to vote? I don't think it's
not,
going
though.
to, you know what I mean? So for me, to go to your second question, I don't really like, the DNC does their thing and there's different groups that are trying to figure stuff out. I like this party, the Working Families Party. We have it here in New York. They're only in 28 states. They're really good at identifying progressive candidates. They're really great at messaging. They show up and do in-person events, and they sort of like kiki with the Democrats, right? So they will endorse Democrats, and you can vote on the Working Party's line for people like AOC or Summer Lee or Jasmine Crockett, those type folks. But they don't necessarily, they're not like the Green Party where they're spoiler candidates, where they're like never going to get enough votes to do anything. They eventually caucus with the Democrats. And I think that they might be the better person to turn to for what comes next, because they are a Black-led organization. And I'm a white person who's a part of the Black-led organization, right? So it's not about race once you're in, it's just about being with people who really get it and who live it every single day and who need these policies to improve their communities, as opposed to trying to get some ideological. First of all, if there are people who were voting Democrat before who are now MAGA, I don't know that you're going to get them back. Something has fundamentally changed in their brain chemistry and in their values.
I agree with that.
So what's the point?
Well, I was telling someone recently that like, I actually think people are being histrionic about the Democrats' problem, because I agree with you. A ton of people stayed home. And I also think we have been focusing a little bit on this New York mayoral race and the fact that Zohan Mamdani, who is part of the Socialist Party of America, is within 7 points, which is a statistical tie in polling, of Chris Cuomo. And he is as progressive as it comes. He's young. He's like 33.
New York royalty.
AOC, acolyte. These people have followings, and they have strong grassroots followings. The problem that we were speaking to a moment ago is just like But the Pod Save America bros are probably not going to like him. And they still think they're in power. So I'm like, if you're a Democrat, want to gamble on some of these candidates and see what happens? Like, that's what I'd do if I were a I'm not. But like, I just don't understand why there's such belittling of candidates like this, which are clearly showing power and enthusiasm and money going after them. Anyway, I don't know if you have thoughts on that mayoral race.
It's just oh yeah, I do. I think Andrew Cuomo running for mayor is such a dangerous thing, and I hope that he doesn't get
Horrible.
ranked. I hope he doesn't get ranked. I think there are some people who you had your chance, you had your second chance, and we've got to move forward from here. And
Also,
I like
political
Mamdani,
family.
but yeah.
Stop.
No more.
No more
I told you that I'll
Cuomos.
never
I
vote for a
say it.
Clinton or a Cuomo or a McCain or
Yeah,
anyone.
no, it's fine. I agree.
No
America is not-
Kennedys even.
No more
America,
Bushes.
I
Nope.
agree. I totally agree with that. And I was like, no, why do you guys think you're so important? Anyway, sorry, continue about how you feel about.
No, I like Mamdani. I think where he needs to improve just a little bit, if he's going to get that next 7 points, is the Jewish community is a major part of New York City. And how are you? I think he spoke to everyone except the Jewish community so far, and he's still got a couple days to go. So I think he's going to have to get in there and talk about how he could be culturally sensitive and relevant and understand their needs as well.
He's also not doing as well with Black voters, which is interesting. Black voters are statistically less, less likely to go over to the Socialist Party. But I do, unless you have anything else to say on Democrats, anything you like, I want to move on. Okay. I have to ask you about this. And a reminder, if you would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel, go to youtube.com/Citizen McCain, @Citizen McCain. Look, giant bombshell reporting that Elon Musk is on drugs on the campaign trail.
Who knew? What a surprise.
Just a background. Neither of you or I drink. I obviously do not do drugs and have never done drugs. I'm just like, I don't like any of that kind of stuff. I want to show you number 11. This is Elon Musk at CPAC. And the New York Times reported that it is like sort of widely understood. And I asked a friend of mine who works in the club scene if this looks like someone on drugs, and she said yes. Sort of see him with the chainsaw.
You had to ask. Yeah.
I'm just not I've never been a drug. I got too much addiction in my family. I don't like, I'm too much of a control freak. I don't like anything. Anyway, the New York Times reported that his drug use, that he was using so much ketamine that he developed a severe bladder problem, which I guess is something that happens. You urinate yourself on Air Force One. It's disgusting. He took so much ecstasy and mushrooms and traveled with a pill box last year that it create concern among the White House staff. Why is this not a bigger story? If someone were with Biden or Kamala or whatever that was doing so much ketamine that they were urinating themselves in the White House, I'm sure Republicans would have a hell of a lot to say. I don't understand this. I don't understand why this isn't a bigger story.
They've normalized all of this like kooky, crazy, off the wall stuff. And first of all, he tries to say, I'm not doing any drugs. I'm doing no drugs, which is wild. You got to admit to a little bit, right? So then you'll think, maybe they'll think you're only doing a little drugs and not a lot of drugs. He also said that he did some prescription ketamine at one time. There is no such thing as take-home prescription ketamine. So that's not true. There was a small in-house regulated study that was done. Yeah. But they were in-house, okay? They were not, you didn't get like K to take home, okay? So I think it's obvious that the man is deeply insecure. He has a lot of issues that he tries to escape, be that with drugs or money or women or this idea of like populating the earth via IVF and saying he'll donate sperm to anybody who wants to have children. I think like, again, it's just too weird, Megan. Like this is weird and not normal at all. But because there's so many weird things that are happening in Trump's White House right now, this just appears to be one more of them. And I think people look at Elon and go, well, when you have enough money, who's going to stop you? Or he's so rich, he can do whatever he wants. And it's like, no, we should bring back social shaming.
We should bring back social shaming. I totally agree. And also to all the 40% or whatever of Republicans who are against gay marriage, you're against gay marriage, but you're for this. You're for a ketamine-induced guy that's impregnating 16 women and not taking care of their children and getting in public fights with the mothers. It's funny. I was talking about this with my husband like a week or so ago, and I was just like, it's so fucking weird. It's weird. I don't like this kind. I mean, I can handle some weirdness in life, whatever, but this is like, I think it's like duplicitous. I think it's dark. And I just can't believe that he was like, I just can't believe, like, if someone were doing so much ketamine that they were urinating themselves in front of me, like, I would be like elevating the issue and be like, we can't have this. It's crazy.
You would think so. I mean, he's left now, but.
I mean, so they say.
His band of cherubic miscreants are still gallivanting through all of our data. So as long as Big
Big
Balls is
balls,
on
you
the
mean?
scene,
Yeah.
I don't think he's gone. And now we've got the Stephen Miller's wife running off with him. I mean, this is a soap opera. This is a reality show. This is a democracy or the presidency or what the United States of America represents. It's a joke. It's
Do you
crazy.
think this will end up impacting Trump and, MAGA world going forward in 2028?
Yes, I do. I think depending on how long it sticks around, right? We're only getting crazier. I mean, Trump the other day retruthed or whatever it's called that Joe Biden was executed in 2020 and replaced by a robotic animatronic. And I'm like, okay, well then what about this original sin book? Was it the robot that was malfunctioning or was it Joe Biden that was malfunctioning? So I just think at some point, and I've seen it in my own communities, people are like, this is actually too much for me to keep up with. I can't keep defending so much weirdness.
Can I tell you, V, I'm just tired. Like
Just
that's
bored
how
of
I
it,
feel.
yeah.
I'm just tired because there's some things Trump has done that I really like and I was really happy he did, but the drama and the hypocrisy among so many people that I came up with in this industry who are on the right, who I'm sorry, but drugs in the around, someone on drugs doing things among all these, so many other things I could point to. I'm just so tired of it. And I was telling my producer that like if JD Vance wins in 2028, like I might just not do this anymore because for whatever reason, I just have never gotten into the MAGA cult and I am not going to. And maybe there isn't really a place for me, but I don't want to have to like, and I don't know if you feel this way about your shows. Like there's so much of it that is just, I'm so exhausted by it.
It is. It's redundant. It's exhausting. It feels like, you know what, if you've ever known somebody who's been in addiction, had a family member or a partner that was an addict, you get to a point where you're like, all right, well, and you sort of like give up on it. And that's how I feel like people are feeling about all of this dysfunction and drugs and everything that's going on with the Republican Party right now is like, I just have to walk away from it for my own health. I can't be around this much. And so I'm hopeful that they do. But if JD Vance gets into office, what am I going to do? I'm going to start a sports podcast and I'm just going to stop. I don't know. I'm going to give up. I can't even fathom such a thing happening.
I really think I'm nobody in their 80s in this country like wants to retire. I just saw Leslie Stahl talking about how like she's so heartbroken that like 60 minutes ago away, and I was like, you're 84. Like
I know.
retiring's not an idea, like not okay, whatever.
All
I
these
have to
boomers
I would
hoarded
love
the
to be able
wealth.
to retire right now. My
For
goodness.
real, they hoarded the wealth, and I'm like, can't you go like on a boat or something
I
and like
know.
let us do the work so that
Take
maybe
a
I can?
nap.
I mean, it's my dream to retire someday, and you guys won't let it go.
Same. I hope I have a martini at the beach, like
Yeah,
whatever. Just like, I don't drink, but like that version of barbecuing.
yeah.
I want to show you this clip. So I am so happy with new media. You're part of new media.
Mhm.
I guess we're kind of new media.
Yeah,
I like new media, but I
it's
think that
good.
we should get rid of that goddamn new media seat. And I'm going to show you a clip why. Number 9, please.
Now, in an effort from the White House to expand access to new companies, you've created this new media seat. So I'm wondering if you can comment on, following this expansion, you've had numerous outlets disparage the companies that you've had sit here, as well as the reporters. I'm wondering if you could comment on the unprofessional behavior, as well as elaborate if there's any plans to expand access to new companies.
Sure. Well, we certainly welcome diverse viewpoints in this room, which is one of the reasons we have you in here, and there's many new faces in this room in comparison to the previous administration.
Okay, so I'm sure there have been a few new media questions that have been fine. I just have missed it. But the vast majority of them are just like, why is everyone so mean to you, Trump? Why aren't they loving you enough? It's ridiculous and embarrassing. Why is this like this? I hate it.
Again, because it's not an actual new media seat. I mean, it is a guest of the press secretary seat. And let me explain to you how that works, right? If you are being invited in as a guest of the press secretary, then these people are either being told a question that they'll be allowed to ask when they get called on, or they have to have their question pre-approved. These are all just prompts to get Caroline Leavitt to continue the propaganda of this particular administration and to actually stop genuine reporters from asking real questions. So when they say there are more people in this room than ever before, that's true, but that doesn't mean that better or more expansive journalism or reporting is being done. when you are still singularly controlling the narrative of who gets to ask a question from that seat and what that question is. That's why I never applied for White House credentials for this White House, because it's like, I'm not going to go as her guest, like, and that's what the seat is.
Yeah, and there's so many people that are chosen for it that I like know some of them, and I'm like, but you're not a journalist and you don't pretend to be. And it's like, do we really need the ruthless podcast bros like sitting like
Well,
I just don't understand what's going on. Like it's
but like,
stupid.
welcome to the new media. You have to fight to be told if you're a journalist or not every single day. There are some times when I'm Harvard fellow, V. Spear journalist, and there are
Yeah,
other times when
serious.
people are like, you're a friggin' hack and a fraud. So like, if you want to be a new media, you will spend every
Why are
single
you a
day
hack?
saying if you're, who knows? Oh my
God.
God, the conspiracy theories about me are wild. Some of them are really quite interesting, like that I don't actually live in Rochester and that I live with my parents in California. My mom's never even been to California. It's the internet, Megan. It's the
God.
Wild West. People fill
There's
in information, with dreams.
somebody tweeted at me, why hasn't your dad come out saying that has something
Right.
about Joe Biden? I was like, because he died 7 years ago.
You're like,
That's
well,
I know. There you go.
let
I'm
me see if
sorry
I
to
can
laugh.
find some
That's hilarious.
archival footage. I don't know. Yeah.
I want to show you. So Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa is making a lot of news because she gave a town hall, and again, in like dumbest things I've ever heard. People in the town hall were asking her about Medicaid, concerns about cuts to Medicaid, concerns about cuts to healthcare, and her answer was, "We all die someday." Which again, whatever. And then she doubled down by going in a graveyard and putting up this social media clip over the weekend.
Hello, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely apologize for a statement that I made yesterday at my town hall. I was in the process of answering a question that had been asked by an audience member when a woman who was extremely distraught screamed out from the back corner of the auditorium, "People are going to die." And I made an incorrect assumption that everyone in the auditorium understood that, yes, we are all going to perish from this earth. So I apologize. And I'm really, really glad that I did not have to bring up the subject of the tooth fairy as well. But for those that would like to see eternal and everlasting life, I encourage you to embrace my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
I don't understand this, V. I think it's so callous and so
Listen,
ugly.
You
Go ahead.
know, she was like, look, we're going to go to the graveyard today. Self-tape, baby. You know, she finished that and was like, 8, left no crumbs, slayed. She thought she killed that. She thought that was the funniest, greatest thing that had ever happened.
At a
And
graveyard. Like,
she's just to go so
Because
far
we're all
out of
gonna
your
die,
way.
Megan. We're
To
all
go
gonna
so far
die.
out of your way. She's just so weird. She's another one who's weird. I'm sorry I keep using that word, but I can't like think of anything else. This is a woman who just a couple of years ago was at the center of a sexting scandal with a lobbyist for the Air Force. Do you remember this?
no. Oh my
No.
gosh.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Let me bring you tea. So back in like, it was like 2017, I think is the first, or 18 is the first time she got elected. And then right after that, there was an investigation into Major General Finnery, who was lobbying for the Air Force. And he was caught with 5 different women, sexting them. 2 were from the Pentagon and 3 were named redacted. And ProPublica did an entire investigation. And there were many sources who said that one of these women was Joni Ernst and that she was sending him, sort of nudie pictures back and forth. And then he told her what assets to protect. And she says it never happened, but a lot of people say that it did. Her ex-husband has said that she had an affair with a soldier one time. She also was accused of having an affair with somebody from the military, from the Navy lobby. So this is a woman who I just think maybe doesn't participate in society in the same way that we do, while still being like, I'm the party of family values and I'm my personal Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Like, so Joni Ernst is wild.
She's the one that was like,
Well-
I'm like you. I'm not a witch, right? That's her.
Yes.
She's the I'm not a
no,
witch
that's
lady.
Christine O'Donnell.
Oh, okay.
No.
Oh,
No,
sorry,
she's
sorry,
the
sorry,
one
okay.
who
pig
did
one.
an ad talking about how much she enjoyed castrating pigs.
Yes, she's a
Yeah.
castrating pig one.
So,
Not to be
she's a
confused
pig
with the-
castrator. She's a weirdo. I don't know.
Not to be confused with the what was it, the haunted goats one? That was was Chris, who was that? Never mind. Doesn't matter. Lots of insane ads. But what I do want to ask you about is the seriousness of this, because there is grave concern about Medicare cuts and just healthcare cuts in general. And I don't think it's anyone who's been to any town hall anywhere. If you talk to anyone that's like over 60, it's probably the number one issue they're going to ask you about. And the idea that like you're just going to die. So if you
I don't
get
think that
sick or you
woman
get
screaming
cancer,
where people are going to die is hyperbolic. I think that's very a sincere and real concern.
yes, we're all gonna die, but you don't have to die immediately. Like, it's the same thing that like there's a crisis in this country because more Black women die giving childbirth than white women do. Like, there's issues that we should focus on that we can do something about. I don't understand. I know it's not like, I feel like you're my therapist a little bit, V, but like, I don't fucking understand this. I would never talk to someone that way. I would never say to someone, you're going to die. So it doesn't matter how you feel about healthcare. Maybe I have a difference of opinion on like what kind of healthcare, what government source we should use for healthcare in the country. I don't know. But like, do Republicans, have we just like, so many of these people just like lost, like you said, like a sense of reality? Because it's a really disgusting thing to say, actually.
Well, going back to the psychology of it, I think when you have to justify cruelty, which cutting the entire Medicaid budget is a cruel policy choice. It's cruel.
It
Most
is
of the children
cruel.
in this country are born under Medicaid. So, I mean, like this is cruel. It affects elderly people, very disabled people. So I think when you realize that you have to defend cruelty, you get a little bit meaner, right? Because you have to sort of like steel yourself to say these really mean and horrible and cruel things. And so being questioned about this policy that she knows people will die on account of, most likely children who are potentially not going to be able to be born in a safe way, or women giving birth, or elderly folks, she's now going to be mean and sort of callous and brush it off, because for her to have to face her constituents who will honestly be affected more than maybe some people in quote blue states, she'd have to be honest with herself, and she's not going to do that. So what she's going to do is put her guard up and say something else shitty, and that's sort of like the circle we're in right now.
It really, I don't know. When I saw it, I was like trying to laugh at it, and I was just like, I'm actually just really upset by this. Do you
Nobody
have the
wants this. Nobody wants this. Even Trump said, right, don't F with Medicaid or something, and then he does anyway mess with it. So I think, again, I can't wait to get back to boring politicians who have degrees in like constitutional law or something, or policy, so that they understand the implications of things like, we're going to cut this budget item. What does that actually mean? And how much does that cost? It costs more in public health if we don't have Medicaid.
How is your community of, listeners, followers, how are they responding to this moment? I would assume they're probably more left leaning, but I know you have a lot of independents that follow you as well. How are they feeling in this moment?
So a lot of folks are now starting to turn to, well, in 2026, I'm like, we're not there yet. We have to get through this week. That one big, beautiful bill is on the docket again this week, and they're going to continue to try to push it through. I don't think it can happen, but, I've seen crazier things. I think folks are exhausted, which is what authoritarianism does to you. And I think they're looking for who the next hero and the next savior is going to be, and that's not going to work either. And I think folks are turning inward, like you do with any kind of grief or sort of bad feelings, to smaller communities. Now they're getting more involved in local politics. We just had massive turnout for our school board election up here where I live, which is not something that typically gets massive turnout, and we voted very progressively. I think we're looking at governors to be those shields from the federal government's policies. Well, if the federal government's going to cut Medicaid, well, how is Badger Care going to step in and try to help more? Or is there anything the governors can do to sue the Trump administration? We're winning in court. So I think people are just sort of like frantically grabbing for whatever driftwood they can hold on to in this sea of sort of upsetness right now. And again, maybe if anything good comes out of it, it is getting more involved in local politics.
Is there anyone you like, you think is the
right
future?
now?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, who do I like right now? Malcolm Kanyande is pretty great. He was the other person who was affected by the DNC revote. Everybody talks about David Hogg, but Malcolm's actually like incredibly intelligent, and I think really strong and thoughtful and steady. I like him a lot. I like Deja Fox for Arizona's 7th district. I think she's fantastic. Win? I hope so. The daughter of the person who held the seat before is sort of getting a lot of the DNC attention, but I really hope Deja Fox wins. I think she'd be great for that district.
She did great in the debate.
She's very smart, and she gets it. And I think people would love to see her win. Also, if she wins, then that's going to make the big D Democrats have to pay attention to Gen Z candidates because they'll be like, oh, they can win. I think Kat out in Iowa's 8th district is great. But again, she's doing this thing where she's like, I had to raise money for my campaign. Instead of buying ads, I did mutual aid pop-ups. She did like a soup kitchen night. She did a food giveaway day. And she's out there shaking hands and meeting people in the community as opposed to doing an ad. And so I think what I like is the creativity of people on small budgets who are running for the first time right now and are changing this idea that you could just add your way or buy your way into the next elected seat, and instead are being forced to go out there and meet with their constituents, which is what we want. I'd also love for Nancy Pelosi to retire, as we talk about all the time, and I think that would free up a lot of space in the party for us to continue to move forward.
I don't know why she won't. I don't understand it. There's
Her
a
entire
level of-
identity is this. Why would you? Look at how much she's having a great time.
there's somebody smarter than me has got to write like a deep think piece about why all these 80 something plus year olds in media and politics and everywhere don't want to be with their families or go on vacation or enjoy the last years of their life. It really is quite fascinating and horrifying at the same time. My last question for you is, do you like David Hogg? You know, there's rumors that people are trying to push him out as vice chair of the DNC. I don't like him only because I just don't like his tone. And back when he was like first coming up to, you know, I wouldn't say power, but like to relevance, and right after the tragic shooting he was involved in, he was trying to get every Republican on the planet canceled. And I don't trust people who want every Republican taken off air and sending all your knives after, getting advertisers taken away. We all have to live and do this together. I don't play that game. I don't do it to people on the left because I think it's dangerous. So I don't trust him, but I'm a Republican. Do you like what he's doing? Do you think he's a good person for the future?
So on my Substack, I compared David Hogg to James Carville. And I think that that is maybe, it was at the time when they were having beef with each other and then ended up having like a kumbaya, like come to brother.
It's very weird, by the way, that clip.
It was. It felt very strange and maybe staged. I don't know, allegedly. He, to me, is a person who has a lot of thoughts about things that other people can do and how other people should show up and behave. And I like to see people who are like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to run for office. He's too young to run for office. He can now. So, but I'm not a person who is into the consultant class or the consultant idea of things. And I think he sort of fills that space. That's sort of the track he's on that had been created from before. I think he gets an outsized amount of attention compared to other young people in the party. I don't think all his ideas are good or all his ideas are bad. I just think that I'm not looking for a hero. I'm looking for somebody who says, hey, this is what I could do, and I like what you're doing, and maybe we could do that together and see where it goes. I don't like anybody who comes into a situation and says, I alone have the answers, and it is to decide how other people should behave and control them. And so, you know, we talk about not wanting an authoritarian, not wanting a dictator. And there's a lot of people on both sides of the aisle who don't want a dictator unless they get to be the dictator, unless they get to be the big boss. And so I think sometimes we run into this, not just with him, but with lots of people who don't know how to work in community and in collectives and just want to shoot through and be like, I have the idea, I have the silver bullet. So I respect what he's doing. I'm glad he's doing something, but I think he runs the risk of going down the James Carville path a little bit, but maybe not winning he hasn't won an election yet that I know. So
yeah, and I also think he reminds me of like all the tech bros who are like, we're gonna work fast and break things, and it's like,
I don't
something
like that, yeah.
I don't either, and it makes me anxious.
Well,
like
because
I'm
they
like,
break stuff for women. They never break stuff for men. They break stuff for us, and then I'm like, I did
Totally.
not ask for you to break this thing.
I also just think that, like, you know, as you were referencing earlier, like the Democratic coalition, I saw this clip on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen it. It was like a painting of a Black woman in bed looking just exhausted. And the caption was like, Black women having to carry another election for Democrats. And I feel like in leadership, there should be people of color in the Democratic Party just because it is such an important person. I was fascinated they chose 2 white men. It's not very indicative of where Democrats are at right now. I just found it interesting.
I completely agree with you. And that's why I'm a part of this thing called the Persist Network. Again, it's a Black-led network by Rhonda Fox. And I think for me, the $20 million to get the men back and whatnot, I'm like, there are 90 million people who didn't vote. There are 34 million people who are of color that didn't vote. And this is who the party is for and about. And these are the people who, when they lead, we have the most success. So why are we not trying to deepen relationships with the folks who share our values and instead trying to bring people back from a place that I think is dangerous to bring people back from. I don't know that I want people who used to be MAGA necessarily being like, oh, I'm a Democrat now. Like, is that safe for a lot of the folks who were victimized by a lot of the MAGA policies before, who have been a core voting bloc over here? It's not what I
I
would do
also
with that.
think that like it's good just you can't I don't think that's even how like the world works where you're like we're going to reach
Yeah.
out to men and they're going to respond to us. It's like no, there's just going to be a leader that men
Mhm.
respond to and women and whatever.
Yeah.
Like that it will come. It always comes.
Yeah.
Like politics is extremely cyclical and
Mhm.
again I keep telling to my friends on the right who just think that like I mean I was hearing this, someone yesterday saying like it's just we got in 2028 and it's Vance and whatever and I was like I just don't think you guys are living in reality about how upset and scared a lot of people are in the country who would be willing
Yeah.
to take a gamble on the right kind of candidate and the person quite frankly who had the right charisma and background. I
It's
don't
not
know.
going to be
That's
Gavin
just
Newsom. It's not going to be anybody, Jake Tapper. It's not going to be any of these people who are trying to play both sides of the fence, right? I think Pete Buttigieg has done a great job of going on right-wing podcasts and still maintaining his values and his integrity. That's a great way to do it. We saw Bernie fail at that, so it's not Bernie either. But and maybe we don't know who it is yet, right? We didn't get Obama until like right before the election. It was like that's the guy. So I think there's plenty of room for a leader to emerge still. And I think that in a lot of ways, the people that I keep company with, we're working around the sort of like big D Democrats to kind of just be like, all right, well.
my last question. Do you like Wes Moore?
Oh, yes. I think the state of Maryland is one of the most interesting states right now to be in. And I used to live there and I wish I still lived there. I think Wes Moore's great. I think he's one of these guys who like George W. Bush, right? Yeah, I could have a beer with him, but I also trust him to be smart and deal with things. You mean for president? Do I like Wes Moore or for governor?
Or just for
I'd have to see what his national politics are like, but I think he's done well for the state of Maryland and I think he's a good dude.
I was given a list of people recently that are rising stars on the left,
Yep.
and I had to say no, yes, no, yet. They just wanted my opinion.
Oh,
And Wes Moore was number one, yes.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
did some pretty deep dives into his background. Naval Academy graduate, obviously, I'm going to
Yep.
love that.
Yep.
And just like it's some superficial things. His wife is stunningly gorgeous. His family looks like they're out of a Hallmark
Hey,
channel.
success,
And
success.
he's very like to win over Maryland, whatever. That's if I were in charge of the DNC, no one ever fucking asked me. It's fine, but
Right.
like watch him. I'll talk to you in a year and I'll be like, remember when we said Wes Moore was someone? Probably
I'm
don't know who
telling
Wes
you.
Moore is actually. It's fine.
I think JB Pritzker is another good one. You know, if people like billionaires,
keep saying
he's
him
a
too.
decent one. Yeah, he's a good dude too. He's a great person.
I
him.
like that he's angry in the way that I like, where he's
Yeah.
like not taking bullshit. I like that in a politician.
I like him.
V, thank you so much for all your time. I
course.
always love speaking to you. I will come on your podcast, I promise. I'm
Okay,
sorry, I'm
good.
just being chicken shit. I just don't want to be on the internet with like
What
everyone
about
being like,
Substack Live? What about Substack Live? We could do
So
Substack Live.
I've got some issues with Substack lately that I want to tell you.
Really?
Yeah, I got to talk to you offline about stupid
Okay,
Substack.
T.
Yes, sorry. Like Substack. I think I don't know. Is it a lot easier to be a man on Substack? I don't
It's
know.
a lot easier to be a man, Megan. Period.
Yeah,
Period, the
okay,
end.
fair enough. I don't know. I have some thoughts on Substack. But I'll do whatever you want. Whatever you want. I'll do it on your
All right,
Instagram.
cool.
I'll do it on whatever.
Great.
You can follow V at TikTok and Instagram at Under the Desk News and on YouTube at V Sphere SPEHAR. Do you like YouTube?
No.
Yeah, me either.
I hate
No
YouTube.
offense.
I'm sorry to say it like that. Nobody should say that. I do it because it's important, but it's difficult. The comments are much more difficult. The reach is harder. Right now, TikTok and Substack are my main spots. And I have been liking Substack because I think it's like a more controlled audience experience. It's good.
TikTok has been wonderful to us.
Yeah,
Instagram
they're
is
great.
even though the comments suck, they still engaging.
Yeah.
YouTube, man,
It's
I
tough.
gotta.
It's
I
a
don't. I'm like,
desert.
we were saying like, do you know what would be a good thing? Like a way to get YouTube clicks is like we got to start getting like real conspiratorial. Like I need to come on here and be like, you know what,
gotta
Joe
be
Biden
dark.
is a robot.
You got to be
you know what?
dark.
I agree. Like,
Be like, and you should
Yes.
be like, I know, because I know him, and he is a robot.
Yeah, the
You
audience
guys-
is much younger, male, conspiratorial. They also want you to be on there for like 8 hours at a clip. I can't do that. Yeah,
Who
I
has
don't
the
Twitch
time to
either. but
watch
it's
that?
people.
Oh my god!
Yeah, so I think
Twitch.
YouTube's for boys, Instagram's for girls, TikTok's for everybody, and Substack
TikTok,
is for the
TikTok has
funnies.
been
Yeah.
so good to us. When they were trying to ban it, I was like,
Good.
don't do that. TikTok's so wonderful to us. They're so
TikTok's
nice.
very
to us.
democratized. It's very good.
Yes.
It's you get a fair shake over there for sure. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Well, thanks
Thank
for
you,
having me,
V.
gals.
See you
later.
soon. Thank you. Bye. And all right. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. We'll be back again, same time, same place on Wednesday. That was really fun. See you soon, Miranda, with your
Thanks.
$20 asparagus.
My $1 million onions. Yes.
Bye.
Bye, guys.